Welcome to our podcast on the art of graceful change. I am so excited to have Suaad and Louise on the podcast, who are also going to be joining us in the Maldives. I'm so excited. And thank you so much for agreeing to join us on this beautiful journey. Suaad, let's start with you if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Welcome. Thank you, Heidi, for having me here. And thank you so much for inviting me and Dr. Louise to the Maldives. My name is Suaad. I was a competitive and world hip hop and sport aerobic champion. I also have over 50 disciplines, certification, training, master trainer for multiple movements, whether it's dance, fitness, wellness. I love everything that makes women feel good in their bodies, that makes them express themselves through movements in ways that they cannot articulate with words. I love everything that has to do with sensuality, stretching. So I was also a TV host on the news for 15 years. And I just love everything that has to do with movement, fitness, wellness, and especially for women.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And Louise?
So I'm a GP, half-time GP, but I'm half-time breathing practitioner and life coach. And essentially, I became a perimenopausal snorer and then worked out that actually I wasn't breathing very well. And I've gone on a journey where I realise now actually, as women transition through perimenopause to postmenopause, we don't necessarily always breathe as nature intended. And actually, we do much better if we breathe as nature intended. It helps us sleep better, it helps us move with greater ease, and it helps us feel calmer. So I'm really excited to come on the retreat and help others. And I think what Suaad is doing with her movement, I think will just marry so beautifully with what I do as well.
Oh, so much. It just goes hand in hand. It's going to be so beautiful, definitely. And what I'm finding really interesting at the moment is that I've been obsessed the last 2 years as I've been going through perimenopause and listening to every podcast and reading everything to try and understand about this journey. And there's nothing really I'm grasping, because I suppose the information that I'm seeing out there, it seems to be all about maybe on one side, we're going to moan about it and we're going to be like, oh, I feel really down and I'm, poor me, not poor me, but, like I just feeling rubbish and this, menopause is rubbish and we've got to get through it. And then there's others who seem to be trying to find ways to completely conquer it. And it's like, this is a phase of our life. You're not going to conquer it. It's like going through puberty. You know what I mean? You're not going to conquer it. You've just got to find a way of navigating. And I suppose for me, this is why I'm so delighted you beautiful ladies are joining me, because the biggest thing that we all have this connect with, and the same with Francesca that's joining us as well, is that we all understand that we can embrace it positively, but also we need to navigate through rather than trying to avoid it or just kind of giving up and saying, my life is miserable. So rather than go into detail, I think, at this stage, majority of us that are going through this understand, symptoms, and literally the list seems to be getting bigger and bigger. And I think there are, maybe you can talk a little bit, Louise, about that. I think there's some key symptoms that we will experience, but then there's so many other things, like my knees gave up on me about 6 weeks ago. And, I know it has a connection somewhere, but I'm just not giving up and saying, that's it, it's just menopause. I'm now, I'm working my way through to understand how I can make changes myself, to improve. But what would be the key kind of symptoms that women would be experiencing during like the perimenopause phase, Louise?
So obviously our bodies change, and I think exactly as you highlight that we can't avoid this. We're going from having lots of female reproductive hormones to a phase where we have less of them, and our bodies are different. And I think we have to really respect that. I think we can thrive, and I think all our experience and knowledge can really really help us, and actually can be. I think we can completely thrive. But I think if we just go as though nothing's changing and we're not respecting what's happening with our body, I think that's when the issue is. So I think and there's physical and there's psychological symptoms related to changing hormone levels. And obviously with perimenopause, there's lots of variation, whereas post-menopause, we tend to have more flat levels. So I always say to women, it's definitely more challenging in the perimenopausal stage, and it becomes easier. So I think that's one thing, really important thing. So it's not going to be like this forever. But, you know, there's so many symptoms, it's untrue, but, you know, like brain fog, memory problems, reduced energy, low mood, anxiety, irritability, poor sleep, lack of libido, muscle joint pains, as you said, skin and hair, nails, they all change. You know, people might get different headaches. Suddenly the migraines might get a lot worse. You know, we get the genital urinary syndrome with the menopause, so we can get dryness of the vagina and the vulva, and some people, instead of dryness, they feel it as more like itchiness or soreness, and it can get painful during intercourse, and also it can affect the bladder, so we can go more frequently, can feel uncomfortable, and the periods can change. All sorts of things can happen with that. And then we've got palpitations, the hot flushes, the night sweats. So I could go on, but lots of different symptoms. But I think we can put our body, essentially, estrogen is an anti-inflammatory hormone, so it helps keep inflammation down, and then we lose in that, so we've got higher levels of inflammation. So what can we do to get those inflammation levels down? And you know, movement, what we eat, how we breathe, all those things can help. So this is not woolly, there's lots of science behind this.
And just something that came up today, actually, I was having a very interesting conversation with my Ayurvedic doctor. What stage, because they say that there's no like blood test to tell us, you know, going through perimenopause or even what stage you were at, right? So at what stage do you say, do you know what, this is perimenopause, or no, this could be something that's not connected to menopause, right? And it is something like an illness or something that's happening. Like, how can we differentiate? Because now I have this like the anxiety that I never used to have is kind of twinging there going, these things that are going on, should I be investigating, or am I just accepting that this is perimenopause? So how do we navigate that?
It's tricky. I mean, from the age of 45 onwards, generally the majority of us, you could say, are perimenopausal. So, you know, because from that age onwards, we will be having declining estrogen levels. So I definitely don't do blood tests from a hormonal point of view above 45 or above. Below that, it depends. So you've got to take into account someone's, you know, they're changed their period. But you've always got, you can't, it's a balance, isn't it, between, obviously, if people have got lots of symptoms, yes, it could all be related to perimenopause, but we've always got to keep in the background, could it be something else? And, you know, sometimes I do a blood test checking someone's not diabetic or a thyroid problem or vitamin D. So there's other things as well. And it is difficult because you've got to try and balance it, because you don't want to investigate everybody, but you don't want to miss things. So I think obviously that's a discussion for them to have with their health professional.
Yeah, definitely.
So
beautiful. And Suaad, with regards to movement, then I'm sure you've had lots of clients that have been going through this phase, and maybe you've seen a change in their bodies and navigating. What do you do from a movement point of view? And where do you find that women that you've worked with, you know, what are they like? Is it changing that are they having to change their exercise? Like, what's your experience with it all?
It's funny you say that, because as I'm listening to you and Dr. Louise, it's like, do we ignore it or do we fight it? And I'm just like, let's manage and embrace it. Like, so there's that just middle, whereas if I'm working with a client who's irritable that day, well, we're going to dance, right? We're going to dance, we're going to ignore. So I definitely think managing the emotional, the psychological, even the spiritual emotions, like you said, Heidi, you start questioning yourself. Is it this? Is it that? Is it me? Is it in my head? Is it hormonal? So learning to embrace that through movement and breath, exactly like Dr. Louise was saying. If I feel like somebody is really low in energy, well, you know what, we're going to do some yoga. Let's start with some breathing. Let's put our legs up on the wall. Let's just kind of connect with our body and release that ease that tension that is consuming us. If someone's irritable, well, let's go dancing. If someone's low energy, well, let's go walking. So you learn to combine different movement and different breath exercises with how that person is feeling that day, and it changes all the time.
It's true. And I for our philosophy, which is wellness your way, and I've always say there's no one size fits all for fitness, nutrition, wellness, anything. There's no one size fits all. And I've been trying to explain to women because especially I found the weight just came on, and it didn't matter what I did. I was cutting back on my food. I was increasing the exercise, even though I was exhausted from it, and nothing was working. And the one thing that I didn't do was actually just be nice to myself and say, look, you're not in the mood today. Just give yourself a break. Instead, I spent the whole year last year just being awful to myself. And my orthopedic doctor said, your knees are now talking to you because you have not been nice to your body, and your knees are saying, hey, I will stop you. And I'm like, okay, right, I'm here. So it's really interesting that I've seen a lot online, Suaad, where, this is the answer to menopause, weight gain or the change in your body shape. But I want women very much to embrace their body shapes. We don't have to give in and let ourselves gain 10 kilos or whatever we do, and if you do you know what, manage it and get through that, and don't beat yourself up. But I also think that there is an element, I've really had to accept my body has changed. My middle has definitely it's changed. I haven't got that little thing going on anymore. And I'm like, well, maybe it'll come back, maybe it won't. But I'm having to get back to loving myself again. And this is what I really want women to work through, which is why I want to bring this retreat, because I want women to feel good about themselves. And I don't want them to feel, oh, no, I've got to go and do, because they're saying, no, for exercise, you need to do powerlifting. Oh, come on. If you've never been in a gym and now you're going there and you're like a mother of three and now going into this daunting gym to do powerlifting, it's not going to happen. And if you've got knees like mine,
Well, it's funny you said that. I had a client, she slipped 2 discs in her back because she was going through menopause. She wanted to do hard 75. She was going to lift hard things. I was like, were you even in the right state of mind? Did you train yourself to get to that level? Or are you fighting, going full force, I'm going to do this? So I think it's learning to love yourself, but being easy on yourself. And I always tell people, trick your body, trick your mind, use the oils, put the meditation music, go into a good environment, kind of almost trick yourself instead of being just in front of the mirror, not appreciating where your body is and not appreciating what it's going through, from parasympathetic, from cortisol. Louise can say all that, but sometimes just tricking ourselves, like going out to dancing with friends or doing salsa, you're burning calories, you're having fun, you're still drinking wine. Just being in these positive environments, you find yourself moving so much more, enjoying yourself, and really appreciating your body.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And we need so much more of that. We're going to be doing lots of dancing at the retreat, so I'm looking forward to it. Yes. So Louise, tell me about breathing, because again, there's so many different techniques out there. And again, like we've spoken about before, there's not a one size fits all as well. However, I remember years ago, I was doing yoga, one-on-one yoga with my trainer who was teaching me, and I'd call her and say, listen, I'm not feeling great. I'm going to have to cancel the session. She's like, get to me now. You clearly haven't been breathing this week. That's it. Get to me now. So I was like, okay. So she'd come in and she'd be like, I can see your breath is all wrong, and that's why you're sick. Fine. So breath is such a big thing to do with everything. So tell us more.
Well, I think I'm going to tap into what you've both said there, and tie it to perimenopause and postmenopause. So if we think about it, the absolute foundation of life is how we breathe. Perhaps we can go a couple of days without water, maybe a few weeks or something without food. But, breathing, even the best free diver can only hold their breath less than an hour. So it's that crucial, and it's that foundation. And, people perhaps don't realise that because breathing's automatic, they assume it's automatically efficient, and that's not the case. We can breathe efficiently, inefficiently, or anywhere in between. And as we slip down that, perimenopause, postmenopause, we're more likely to breathe inefficiently. And what I love bringing in and just tying it to what you've both said is essentially all our automatic processes are controlled by something called the autonomic nervous system. And so breathing's one of that, but blood pressure, pulse, bowel, bladder control, saliva in the mouth, gastric juices, etc. And it's divided into two sections. So one section is that fight-flight response that everyone gives a bad rap. So it's not a bad thing. It actually, when it's activated, it puts our body, it perceives the threat, it puts all the automatic processes into survival mode. So it helps us survive and cope with adversity. It's just that at the moment in the modern world, it's turned on too much. And when we're like that, how do we breathe? So if once I was running and someone let go of their dog and I literally thought I was going to be attacked. So how did I breathe? So it was like, so it's open mouth, upper chest, fast, big breaths. And that told my body, my fear center saw my breathing center change, the pattern of my breathing, and put everything into defense mode. I had more inflammatory markers go up. And that was to protect myself from that dog. And that's fine. Luckily, the owner got the dog and I was fine. And I knew then I needed to tell my body that I was safe. So I closed my mouth. I breathe really gently and slowly using my diaphragm. And then my inflammatory levels come down. My parasympathetic relaxation response turns on. And I think people don't realize that how they breathe impacts that balance between the fight, flight, and the relaxation response. And we know, as I said earlier, we're going to have more inflammation because we've got less estrogen. So it's really important we breathe more parasympathetically, relaxation response driven, because that helps get the inflammation down, and doing other activities that help the relaxation response. So, connection with others, joy, as Suaad saying about the dancing, being in nature, meditation, all that helps get inflammation down. It strengthens the vagus nerve to help that relaxation response. And actually, when Suaad's doing all her movement, actually, yes, there is more sympathetic fight-flight response that's going on then. But then the body comes back with a lovely healing response after we've done the movement. So, and if we breathe in a way that's more efficient, we don't create quite as much fight-flight response. And I think one of the biggest things that I think we're missing in perimenopause and menopause and postmenopause is how we breathe when we're asleep. Because if we're breathing more like this, we're driving that fight-flight response. True. Whereas when we're asleep, we shouldn't have fight-flight. The lips should be closed. We should be breathing gently, slowly using the diaphragm, and that helps the relaxation response. And we know that as women transition through perimenopause to postmenopause, there's a steep rise in snoring and obstructive sleep apnea. Yeah. That's when we actually stop breathing during sleep. And I think from a breathing exercise point of view, it's exactly as you said, it's actually listening to your body, isn't it? And actually, so exactly what you've both said, it's actually, everybody wants a breathing protocol. You're like, what do I need to do? Tell me what to do. And actually, no, it's, I say, how efficient is your breathing? And if it's inefficient, I'm going to give totally different exercises to somebody who's breathing quite efficiently. And actually, how does that person want to be at that moment? Exactly what Suaad has just said. If they're already like, oh, go for it, you do a more challenging one. If someone's completely exhausted and, burnt out, it's got to be gentle and a relaxation response. Yeah. And I think it's so important to know your body, listen to your body, and respond and guide it in the direction of travel you want it to be. And yes, you have to have a reasonable amount of understanding to do that, but it's so powerful when we do.
It is, and I was doing another podcast and I was talking about, because whenever I'm doing panels or anything, they always ask me about wearable technology, and they were like, what's the latest, what we should find? I said, you should have none of it. And they're like, what? And I'm just like, I have nothing, because I don't need a watch to say, hey, stand up now, or you need to breathe now. Like, I want to be able to, I do not want to disconnect from my body. And you're 100% right. The biggest problem that we are having in these modern times is that people have been taught to not listen. And if you actually, like when my daughter was younger, before she kind of got influenced by the outside world, I was being able to make homemade organic foods, and that's all she knew. And she would crave things, and I would let her go. Like, she'd have days where she just craved certain foods because she knew what her body was telling her. The problem is then through going through society, like starting school, now you can't eat when your body tells you to. Now you have to eat when we tell you there is a break, you know. So then the body, there's a completely different process, and we very much learn to disconnect from everything. And I think this is a beautiful time, you're right, to actually reconnect with ourselves and start going inwards, go a bit quieter and listen and be nice to ourselves as well. Because something I'll be talking about on the retreat and connecting with NLP is about the self-talk. It's about the self-talk, and a lot of women I'm talking to at the moment, like got a friend who's going through a pretty challenging time, and immediately she was like, it's all me. It's because I'm not, you know, I'm not beautiful anymore, and I'm not fun anymore, and I'm like, oh no, hold on. Like, no, this self-talk, we've got this belief that anything that's happening around us right now is because of we've changed or we're changing. And it couldn't be further from the truth. But again, this anxiety that's coming in is bizarre, but I think the breathing, right, will help reduce that. And I think if we can think about it and get women to understand about that inflammation, which I think is very important, and that what I call the fire in certain, you know, healing modalities, they talk about the fire internally. If we look at how we can cool that down, and breath work is definitely one of those, that can really have a massive impact. So I think that's amazing. Suaad, tell me a little bit about exercise. There's no one size fits all, but if women, we tend to be struggling mainly kind of this mid area, there's definitely growth going on, you know, maybe a little bit of extra under here, you know, a little bit like I'm now not wearing, like, Louise got beautiful sleeveless top. That's not happening on my side here. I'm just like, no, I'll cover these for now. You know, definitely the muscle definition is reducing. What type of exercises are going to benefit us women more going through this cycle without, because I'm finding that I wake up one morning, I'm like, yes, I'm ready to go. And I go and exercise, and then I'm exhausted for about 3 days because all that little bit of energy I did have, I've used all in one workout session. So what kind of things can us women do, and to be able to target those conscious areas that we've got?
First, I want to just say, based on what Dr. Louise said, there's something super interesting. And what you mentioned is a lot of people feel like, oh, now everyone's into taping their mouth. Okay, now when you're in yoga, it's in by your nose, out by your nose. When you're weightlifting, you got to push through your mouth. So there's all this confusing, like I go, no, but my teacher told me to breathe like this, but I saw YouTube. It's like, oh my God, just breathe. Any
Just
silence.
breathe. Yeah.
Like, when did breathing become a certain, like, oh, this is good and this is bad? Like, that makes no sense. So a way that I like to kind of train my clients on different breathing techniques with movements, like both of you are mentioning, it's like, okay, hey, let's do some breath work. Okay, now how do you feel? Okay, now let's lift some heavy weights. Oh, now you're not breathing the same. Okay, how about let's go swimming? So you realize that through different movements, you are also using different breath, right?
Yeah,
Louise?
true.
So I feel like every time we're always talking breathe, but unless you're able to show someone what that means in their body in real time, they're always going to be like, no, it should be in and out of the nose. Okay, maybe if you're purifying, or maybe if you're relaxing, you're parasympathetic. But if you're lifting heavy weights, you should not be like, you know, you're there's that exhalation, like you said. You don't want to be exhausted. You don't want to hold that breath in. And then, have you ever been underwater, like Dr. Louise says? You're not going to last more than a minute without your breath. So I love to kind of showcase how different breaths are used in different movements. And then when you dance, you're not doing any of them. You're just, you're breathing. So when you're able to showcase these people these 4 different ways of moving and breathing, they're like, oh my God. So you can use whichever one you need depending on the activity you're doing. To come back to your question, Heidi, I like my movement like I like my food. I like different days to have different ingredients. Like today, I might feel like jumping on a trampoline. Yesterday, I felt motivated to do my legs. I might take my dog out after. Like, why don't we have fun with it? It's an open menu. There really is no like, oh, you got to lift weights. Okay, I know lifting weights is good for me. Now, do I have to wake up and start with this negative thought? And now I'm applying stress to my body. And now, like, nothing's going to happen. No change is happening. But maybe if you went on a walk every day for 30 minutes, listening to a podcast, walking your dog, oh, I tell you, I feel great. So learning how to, okay, maybe I'll do a paddle today. Okay, maybe I'll go swimming tomorrow. How about we take a bike ride? Like if we really how do you say, interacted with our movement and our exercise the same way we do with food or something fun and exciting. Oh my God. I believe in movement and exercise. It should be breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So what are you doing in the morning? Maybe you're doing some breathing exercise and maybe some yoga. What are you doing at lunch? Maybe you're doing weight training or cardio. What are you doing at night? Maybe you're walking the dog or biking or swimming. So I do believe that movement should be breakfast, lunch, and dinner, same as food. So every time I eat, I move 30 minutes to an hour after. And it doesn't have to be crazy because what happens is the body fights back if it's not appreciating what you're doing to it.
True, actually. And I was talking about this today and asking the question again to the Ayurvedic doctor. And I said to her, why is it that like our parents and our grandparents, like, why didn't they go through it? It doesn't seem to be so exasperated. So why is it now for us? And they're like, oh, well, it's because, we continue to work and, our lifestyles are different. But she said, no, she said, it's very simple. She said, if you look at my grandparents don't go out to eat. They make home cooked food. They walked everywhere because there were no buses or cars or anything like that. So they were always active. She said, so what the body naturally needs, which is good nutrition and movement. And obviously with the Indian lifestyle anyway, breath work was always part of their lifestyle. Even just doing basic sun salutations is just part of their daily lives. So it was just natural for them to come in like that. So she said, now we go and we eat out and, all these things. She said, this is what's changed everything. So it's so much like we have to accept that if we're going to embrace this lifestyle, then we're going to have to get active. We're going to have to go back to basics, I think is the key thing, and people are making it way too complicated. So Louise, let me ask you a question because this is a controversial one now, but I like a bit of controversy because I'm one of these, whereas I won't even take a headache tablet because I'm pretty stubborn. So I like to kind of keep it as simple as possible for myself. And I've asked a lot of friends and colleagues about HRT. And there's a fear factor around it. And being in Asia, by the way, HRT isn't really known at all. Like it's not a thing. Well, actually, they don't even acknowledge menopause, to be honest, very well. But definitely when it comes to HRT, it's not available, easily available. I think there's a fear factor around taking it. Like one of the reasons why I at the moment, and I never say never, have no interest is because I haven't heard anybody that said, you know what, I've got great results. I feel amazing, because it doesn't seem to be solving so many things. They say, no, but it's going to, there's so many other diseases that you can get later on if you don't take it. So I have no opinion about who does and who doesn't. For now, my decision is not. As a wellness person who's concerned, obviously, that my estrogen levels are obviously, completely all over the place now, how can I remain healthy and replace the estrogen? I'm eating lots of seeds, which are apparently natural phytoestrogens, but I probably need to eat like a gallon of seeds a day in order to get anywhere near what my body needs with what's the depletion. What can I do for someone that at the moment is not ready to embrace any medicines?
So I think I genuinely see, and this I've been on a real journey over the last 8 years or so, I think. I genuinely see health and well-being as a jigsaw puzzle, and I've got a blog on it on my website, and I literally share it with patients. I think you can use it at any point in your life, but I think perimenopause and postmenopause, it's very relevant. And it's literally, I think I've got 23 pieces on there at the moment, and hormones is one of them, but then I think there's 22 others. And how we breathe is one, and movement, I've broken it up into different types of movement, but movement heavily features on there as well. So this, and how we eat as well, and what we drink. So there's a huge number of pieces on there, but hormones is only one. And and I think we're all different. And again, this homes back to we're all different, and at different points in people's lives, it will be different. For me, when I was snoring, how I breathed was a massive piece. That was the piece that I changed, that, and my whole life improved. But other people, they might look at that, and they'll be looking at oh, sorry, just bear with me. I've gone on the screen, so sorry, I'm back. So I think what I say to people is, look at your jigsaw puzzle and be honest with yourself, and just pick one piece that you think you've got the most to gain, that you're willing to work on. So there might be a piece, say alcohol's a common one, where someone will know, I know I'm drinking too much, I can't deal with that at the moment. And I'll say, okay, that's brilliant. Well done for noticing it. Don't put it under the carpet. At some point, come back to it. You can't deal with that at the moment. That's fine. Pick your next piece and work on that piece, not for perfection, and being kind and patient with yourself, and just aim to just explore it. A bit like what Suaad's saying, that just explore it and put it into your life, and then move on to the next piece. And hormones is just one piece on that. And I think, there are some people who just think just going on HRT will solve everything. And actually, if there's lots of other pieces that are really big and need addressing, it won't be as helpful. And at the moment, HRT in our guidelines is more about managing symptoms. I think it's going to be interesting in the research over the next 5 years, whether we start to reuse it as prevention again. But certainly the hormones that we prescribe now are much better than what I prescribed at the beginning of my career about 20 years ago. But I think we have to see it as this whole jigsaw puzzle. And just going back to what you were saying about being kind, so I've actually got kindness to self and others as one piece on that jigsaw. And I think what people don't realise is if you talk to yourself, or think about yourself, or act about yourself in an unkind way, you actually drive a fight-flight inflammatory response. So actually, when you think horrible about yourself, you're actually creating more inflammation. Whereas when even if it's just a statement in your head, like, you've said something horrible about yourself, I'm learning to be kind to myself. I'm worthy of kindness. And I think a lot of people at this stage of life are really unkind to themselves. They can be kind to others. They'll put people ahead of themselves, but not kind to themselves. And they're actually driving a more fight-flight cortisol response from that. But I see it as a jigsaw of many pieces. And again, it's about assessing your own jigsaw puzzle, I think.
Yeah, and I think like something like I had a real kind of realization this year. I promised myself that I would, I'm going to be doing this retreat. It's all about embracing women and empowering women. But I was like, then I have to start being kinder to myself. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm looking to live about 100, right? So literally I've got another 50 odd years of good health, good well-being. And if I want to continue to be active and enjoy my life, I've got to now look at what's really important. And I've got to look at what's important that's going to keep me in a good state of health for the next 50 years, rather than trying to find this absolute perfection, which could actually be detrimental to me in another 10, 15 years time, just for that vanity or just finding that quick solution. And I think that's what a lot of women are trying to do. They're trying to just deal with right now, right here, right now, but they're not thinking about the next 50 years ahead of them of, what's your quality of life going to be like? And I think that's really important. And I think that goes back even, Suaad, with movement, that when it comes to, what exercise we do, we need to see what is sustainable. Because we do slow down. It's a fact, you're regardless of how much we try and fight it, I may think I'm 18, but I'm really not anymore, right? So I'm pretty sure the brain
It's funny.
still hasn't matured, but the body has. But
I feel
yeah,
like it's just awareness, like it's being aware, like Dr. Louise is saying, it's awareness and education. And that's why I love this retreat. I love what you are doing. And for women that are going through this, because during those retreats, you can bring so much tools. I always call them my back pocket tools.
Yeah.
And then based on that, when you are going through different things at different time, you're able to pull out what, okay, maybe it's breath, maybe it's movement, maybe it's nutrition, which is everything you're combining in one for women and really making them feel heard, because we all want to age with grace. We all want to, we all want our groove on. We all, you don't just stop being who you are because you're going through perimenopause or menopause. So I love that you're putting this retreat on for women to also vocalize what they're going through. Like when I move with women or dance, a lot of times like, well, I can't say this to anyone. Or if they are talking about some of their symptoms, then it's like everybody's having a pity party or like, so how are we dealing with this? Okay, it's education, it's awareness, and it's also learning to put those tools in your back pocket, like Dr. Louise was saying, whatever it is, talking to yourself, nutrition, alcohol, and then pulling out the cards you need when you need to deal with it. And also just, aging with grace or growing with, and finding out what you can do a different. It's okay. I never thought I would do Latin dance or social dance. I was like a hip hop and acrobatic dancer, but you think I want to split, jump, flip now? No. So it's okay.
Exactly.
Okay. We don't have to have those bodies. We had those bodies. We're moving along.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I agree so much. Yeah. And another thing that we're looking at as well is to actually help women even because a lot of them are like, well, my clothes don't fit me anymore. And it's like, so get a new style. Like we're still trying to dress like we're 30. It's like, oh, I've had my jeans, for the last 10, 15 years. Get over it, okay? Because they're not going to fit you now. So go and find some new jeans that look better, So again, even with what we're wearing, and this was something my NLP coach said to me, I was like, I'm just getting so fat and I hate everything. She was like, could you just not change what you're wearing? I was like, okay, it's that simple. Thank you. Like, my God, the logical brain just not working. There's no rationale whatsoever. And you just need someone to say, could you not just change your clothes? So now I wear these caftans and I'm just feeling sexy. And I'm just like, I don't have to hold my tummy anymore. It's great, So it's about women feeling fabulous in themselves again. And I think then, Louise, it comes then that we breathe differently because the mind is it's in that feel good factor, so we're kind of, like you say, it's that calmness, that inflammation is reducing immediately. So exciting. And what I love about the retreat is, as much as we have a structure for the 4 days and we have certain things set out, beautiful workshops, activities, all of that, and beautiful treatments, but also like you were saying, Louise, if we want to, some people say, hey, I want to kind of, look into breathing a little bit more, that you can spend some time with them, and there can be little breakout sessions in the same Suaad with movement, where people are like, especially in the Maldives, a lot of humidity, a lot of heat, you can get quite lethargic. Okay, so what can we do that maybe we can feel a little bit more energized? So I love the fact that we're not going to keep it rigid. We're going to keep it very fluid so that we can really go with how we're feeling and navigate it. So everybody gets out what they absolutely need from these 4 days. But the biggest thing is that they go away feeling empowered. And then I want to continue out. I want to continue a support network. I want to grow that support network where women are there. And like you said, no pity fest. It'll be about how to empower and how to uprise, not this, oh, poor me kind of thing, because it's not going to do anything for us. There's no benefit to it, right? So we need to see how we get through it. Not under it or over it. We've got to go straight through, and we'll hold hands and do it all together. I'm not sure we'll survive better. So this has been absolutely beautiful. Any final words of wisdom, Louise, from you before we sign off today?
I think I'd just like to say that, it's not easy. I appreciate that. I think Understand your body is changing, it's going to change, but if you understand and work with your body and listen to it and understand, particularly mind body breath connection, you can negotiate through this in a much better way.
Definitely. Thank you. Suaad?
I just want to say, keep moving and keep breathing.
Yeah.
You know, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Figure it out. Whatever works for you, just keep moving and keep breathing.
And I love that idea, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because it's the key thing. We need to keep that body, everything circulating around, and then everything's flushing out better. The body is just in a better space. It's amazing. So the retreat is the 5th to the 8th of June. 2025, and it's in the Maldives, so it's at Oblu Experience Ida Fushi. The link will be in this podcast, and if anybody has any questions, they can certainly reach out. But we're looking forward to seeing some beautiful women on this retreat and having a lot of fun. So for today, signing off with you both, and thank you so much, and really excited about the journey together. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't have to do those things. Yeah, I love it.
You know. Bye, ladies. Thank you, Heidi.